this tape, we're going to be at two different locations in the Sierra. We're going to be in an area that's a little bit lower that has different shelter requirements, and up here where your shelter requirements are very specific. As we move through the information, you're going to find out that your basic shelter needs are going to remain the same no matter where you are. It's just going to be how you're going to construct that shelter that's going to change. Well, before we start looking for that shelter, I think it's important to start understanding how it is exactly that your body loses heat. Now, there's 5 heat loss mechanisms: conduction, convection, radiation, respiration, and perspiration. We need to explain each and every one of those things so you know exactly what you need to do to defeat heat loss through them. So let's go sit down somewhere and talk about it. You know, looking for a shelter is a lot of work. But let's talk about those heat loss mechanisms before we start complaining about how much work it is. I mentioned there's 5 of them: conduction, convection, radiation, respiration, and perspiration. Get out a pencil and get comfortable, because it's going to take me a couple of minutes to explain all this stuff. And my dogs are running around too, so if you see me looking at something, it's just them. Let's talk about conduction first. Whew, that's cold. What I'm experiencing right now is heat loss through the first of the 5 heat loss mechanisms: conduction. Conduction is where the heat passes from the warmer body to the colder body. The warmer body in this case is my fanny. The colder body is a snow-covered log, and that log is cold. Well, so is the earth. If you lay down on just plain old ground, like sand or dirt or anything like that, you're going to feel the same heat loss. It may not be as profound as what I'm feeling right here, but it'll get to you very quickly, because the heat will pass from you to the ground, and you can't heat up the earth. I've learned over the years that quite a few backpackers will go out and spend a couple of $100s on a beautiful sleeping bag. Very, very, very warm. Good to 10 below zero. Take it on a camping trip and freeze all night long. The temperature was only about 40 degrees. Why? It's because they laid that sleeping bag right down on the ground, and their body was losing heat through its conduction. Well, that's one of the ways we lose heat. So we've got to be sure that when we make a shelter, or we select a shelter, that there's plenty of protection from heat loss through conduction. The second one is convection. You can tell by the motion of the branches that we've got a little air movement here. And as you probably know, air movement is often called wind. And wind really pulls the heat away from you. You've all heard of the wind chill factor. And we've got a heck of a wind chill factor going on here right now, because it's cold and the air is moving. Now, up here in the mountains, we've got a wind blowing most of the time. You might be able to see that this stuff is kind of blowing off that direction, and that happens to be up canyon. The wind is going to be blowing up canyon during the daytime and down canyon at night. Up canyon as the air heats up and starts to rise, down canyon as it gets colder and starts to move down. And it can happen if you're stationary and the air is moving past you, or it can happen if you're on a bicycle or a motorcycle. The air is still, but you're moving. Either way, it pulls the heat away from you very, very rapidly. So your shelter needs to give you protection from heat loss through convection or the wind. Radiation. Radiation is heat loss into space. Right here where I'm standing, I can feel sunlight beaming up off of this snow. It's really hot where I'm standing. Seems odd to be standing in the middle of a snow field like this and feel warm, but that's the effect. Now at night, when there's no sun beaming off the snow, the only thing around here that's going to be warm is you. And you're going to be the source of radiation. And once again, you're going to be kicking radiation out. It's going to be going up into space, where you'll be losing it. You see, we're the warm body again, and we kick heat right up into space. You ever notice how it feels a little bit warmer on a cloudy night? Or maybe you're outside on a cold night and it feels chilly, and then you step underneath a carport and it feels a little warmer. Well, if you took a temperature into that carport, you'd probably find out that the temperature is about the same. But outside, when you step out underneath that clear sky, the radiation from your body is shooting up into space. As a matter of fact, we lose somewhere between 60 and 80% of our body's heat production through our head and our neck. So one of the important things to do when you're looking for shelter is to, 1, wear a hat. I always carry mine with me. And 2, search for something that can go over your head to help reduce heat loss. This is my little hat here. You've seen it a few times before. I abuse that poor hat. Well, now we've had conduction, convection, radiation. The next one, respiration. Heat loss through respiration is another way we cool off. Every time we breathe in cool air, we breathe out warm air, and we lose just a little bit of heat. Now, I'm not telling you to stop breathing, because if you do that, that's counterproductive. I went out here into the forest and searched high and low and finally located a ziplock bush. And I have it here. I just wanted to show you what heat loss through respiration looks like. Oop. You can see there that that moisture on the inside is moisture that came from my lungs. This bag is also filled with warm air that came from my lungs. So if you're in a survival situation, what you need to do is be sure that you don't work too hard and increase your respiration rate. It'll dehydrate you and you'll cool off. Well, we know by the rule of threes that you've got to breathe. If you stop breathing, you're going to be dead in 3 minutes. So you've got to breathe. But what happens is this. It's a cold, cold day or cold night, and you breathe in cold air, and then you breathe out warm air. That means you're losing heat just through breathing. What can you do about it? Well, some people already know. You can put a muffler on over your face to help protect yourself that way. That way when you exhale, it heats up the fabric, and then when you inhale, the new air is heated just a little bit by passing through that warmer fabric. Conduction, convection, radiation, respiration, and the last one is perspiration. Actually, perspiration is 2 things. It's perspiration or wetness. Either one. That water is cold. You know, it's really important in a survival situation that you avoid getting wet at all costs. It doesn't make any difference how you get wet. It could be through perspiration, immersion, snow, rain, whatever. Water conducts heat hundreds of times faster than dry air. So if you want to stay alive, stay dry. Now, sometimes people will find themselves in a survival situation simply because they slipped into a stream and they got wet, and then the wind starts to blow and they lose their heat and they drop into hypothermia and they die. Other times people find themselves in the situation because they get excited. Oh my God, I'm lost. Oh, what am I to do? And they start to run, and they waste their energy running, searching for something, and finally they stop, and their bodies are heaving and puffing, and they're respiring very rapidly, losing heat that way, but they're also sweating, so their clothing is wet. And so now suddenly that heat starts to flow out of them. Well, those are the heat loss mechanisms we need to protect ourselves from. We're going to search for a place that protects you from heat loss through to the ground. That's conduction. We're going to look for a place that has protection from the wind, convection. Conduction, convection. Radiation. We're going to look for something that's going to have a little overhead protection, maybe a tree or something like that, or a rock shelter. Conduction, convection, radiation. Respiration. We're not going to work too hard looking for this place. When we get where we're going, we're not going to be jumping around. Conduction, convection, radiation, respiration, perspiration. Are you getting hypnotized yet? Perspiration. Well, we're not going to sweat it either, and we're not going to get wet. We're going to protect ourselves from rain. We're going to protect ourselves from snow, and I doubt that's going to happen. But we're not going to sweat. So we'll stay dry. If we can do that, we can survive. So now we need to start searching for that special place that gives us everything we need. Well, we got to walk again. Okay.